hello to everybody at the discussion Democratize the Digital Space, how to promote diversity and inclusion, which is part of the lecture series Engineering Human and Machine, Social Technological Design and Technological Impact Assessment at Alpen-Adria-University in Klagenfurt, Austria. I welcome two researchers and university teachers, Oana Mitrea and Bernhard Wieser, who will present their research and their inputs. And I welcome all students of our course at the university. So I give to Oana Mitrea, please.
Thank you, Utta. Thank you, Bernhard. Everybody, hello to everybody. It is a great pleasure to be here after so long, after so many years of conducting together this lecture. And I have to say, I don't know for sure if we began on 2014, the first time, so 10 years. We can say it's just a jubilee today, and for this reason I'm very grateful to you, Utta, particularly that you included me in the lecture. And shortly about myself, I am Romanian born in the north of Romania in Transylvania, so and after studying in Bucharest at the University of Bucharest sociology, I went to Germany and did a PhD in a graduate school technification and society, where I did my doctorate on the topic of mobile communication, communicative mobility. At this time, I was very interested in studying the relationship between communication and movement. And these times we witnessed the second generation of mobile phones. They were really simple, so no smartphones yet. And I explored this relationship, particularly the development of location-based services. They were great ideas this time, and this fact and the potential of the technology and the society as well led me to continue my research in the direction of mobility, smart mobility, for a quite long time. At the EFZ, where we were colleagues. Bernhard was also in the center of my preoccupations, and afterwards I was employed at the University of Klagenfurt at the Institute of Intelligent System Technologies in Transportation Informatics groups, where we continued together with Professor Pia Matja, my friend and my colleague. We continued this research in the field of smart mobility and the driver models in the direction of the preparation for autonomous driving, emotion recognition, and so on. Well, after spending 5 years afterwards in the electronics industry as a project manager in a networking organization, the cluster Silicon Alps, I decided to come back to research and also working with students at the Carinthia University of Applied Sciences. And 2022, I received a professorship in the field of diversity, disability, and digitalisation. There is a master started 2 years ago, exactly in this field, and I'm conducting particularly the lectures that prepare the students with the social background to understand basic technologies that have to be then commented, criticized from the social perspective. So it's just a sort of introduction into the core technologies of today, and with a strong focus on the ethics and technology assessment perspectives. So shortly, these are the research interests. Currently, on the one side, the continuation of my focus on mobility and smart mobility and the use, the social impact of this. And on the other side, the reciprocal relationships between technology and society concerning the topics of diversity and disability. These are quite new for me, so particularly the topic of disability, but it's a very interesting one because we have an example where technology is put into the service of society in a very decisive way, so it is declared that so. And assistive technologies have quite a potential to show in what direction, but other sort of technologies will develop. It's some sort of a flag that shows what is possible in a given field. And when the time passed by, maybe this assistive dimension grows and encompasses also other sectors of society, in the sense that not only disability itself remains, but the potential of that technology to help particular categories of persons. Well, this is shortly my history, also my history of life, so not only research. And last time, so in the second session, we talked about smart mobility. We didn't have so much time to talk about autonomous driving. It was the second part of the presentation. And in the last part of this presentation, we had a small section about risks of autonomous driving according to Armin Grunwald. Armin Grunwald is one of our core representatives of technology assessment. And these risks are very interesting. So if you have the possibility to look over the article of Armin Grunwald and to read in detail about technology dependence, for instance, the risks that is described there, we will get a picture about also other possible correspondences of this risk in the other sectors of technology. It's quite interesting. Well, I'm going now to the last part, and I mean artificial intelligence. You know, this is the topic of the day, actually. So a lot of you are working in this field, machine learning and so on. And I'm not talking about the technical part because you're experts now. So in this room, I'm talking about the coping with artificial intelligence from the perspective of the individual and the society. There are a lot of, how can I say, worries related to the use of artificial technologies and artificial technology in manifold forms, and maybe you witnessed them in the media. So there was a lot of talk about the negative effects of negative effects on the educational system, for instance, or exaggerations in one or another field. But on the other side, we can be confident that there is a huge potential, a huge possibility to use artificial intelligence to be of help. For instance, in the medical sector, you are familiar with artificial intelligence being used for a better detection of tumors, for instance, that leaves more time the doctors to maybe to be more involved with the patients themselves, to get in touch with them, to communicate with them, to get more attention from them, and also they become more confident about their decisions in the end. But not only there. If you look only at the use of the internet by persons with vision impairments, we are now in the field of the accessible web, where if you take one of the applications for video bearbeitung, for video production, for anyone, such Movely, for instance. Are you familiar with Movely, maybe, one of you? So you can just look into it. The latest version has an automatic possibility to embed subtitles, for instance, video descriptions, everything that is necessary for persons with vision impairments to get content, or people with hearing impairments and so on. So there is a lot of simple potential to to be used now by people without very much technical knowledge. And this is very interesting. Can we say democratization of the artificial intelligence? It was promised some times ago when OpenAI published everywhere, so we make everything available for everybody. Well, there are side effects too, but I think this is the topic, so the input for today from my side, artificial intelligence, where ethics and technology assessments work together to how can I say, to understand, to feel the risks that are associated with the use of it. And we can say that technology assessment provides the risk concretely, the material for reflection by means of many methods, such as, for instance, scenario methods, but there are a lot of other ones. And ethic assessment receives this material and reflects on it, produce a judgment according to the moral laws of a given society. And these moral laws are quite different according to the society we are now. So it's very interesting to look on this result of the ethic assessment according to the space you are now, the geographical and cultural space. Well, imagine a world where all customer services are handled by AI bots, where you have a problem, a social, a personal problem, and you don't speak to a counselor, you're just speaking first to a bot that is powered by artificial intelligence. Or imagine a world where self-driving cars are becoming a reality, so everything responds to your needs on the basis of your saved preferences and ways and so on. Or prosthetics, AI-enabled prosthetics answers to the particular requirements of a person, provide a very personalized fulfillment of needs. How do you feel about this situation, about these scenarios? Imagine a world. How do you feel about the risks and the potentials that are included in each of them? Maybe it is for you a possibility now to imagine other world scenarios where the knowledge that you have about the particular applications of intelligence, of artificial intelligence, can be so formalized, so formulated. But in any case, the last part of the reflection is that a lot of people thought about that, gathered together, produced a lot of meetings, and in the framework of the preparation of the regulation itself, such as Artificial Intelligence Act in the European Union, we had a very long way until these documents could be produced. And it was promulgated in March 2024, so it's a rather recent history. The whole name is, I've just read it because it's really long, Proposal for a Regulation of the European Parliament and of Council laying down harmonized rules on Artificial Intelligence Act and amending certain union legislative actions. Well, the core of it, of the whole regulatory act of the whole law, is that AI should be a human-centric technology. It should serve as a tool for people with the ultimate aim of increasing human well-being. It stays at the beginning, so the beginning of the description. And the steps that I mentioned, I can gladly send you afterwards because they are quite long. I would not pass by all of them, but they took around 10 years actually. There were a lot of ethical commissions coupled with, I don't know, how can I say, stakeholder gatherings, stakeholder consultation. It stays here that an AI alliance was formed around 2019 with 4,000 stakeholders to discuss technological and societal impact, culminating annual AI gathering. There was a white paper on this way. So a regulation is not a spontaneous act from one year to another. It takes really a long time. And the basics of this, are you familiar with Artificial Intelligence Act? Any of you? No? So, some of you? Yes, some of you not. In any case, as in the case of data protection regulation, there were some restrictions formulated, and these safeguards, several safeguards have been agreed on general purpose artificial intelligence, so these models that such natural language processing could be used in several ways, not only for a given purpose. There were also banned applications, which is very interesting and very, very good, I think, because a lot of applications with high risks for society were strictly banned, such as biometric categorization systems that use sensitive characteristics, political, religious, philosophical beliefs, sexual orientation, and race. Then the untargeted scraping of facial images from the internet or CCTV footage to create facial recognition bases was also banned. Then emotion recognition in the workplace and educational institutions. There was a discussion about how to monitor. So this is yet now completely banned. Social scoring, like in China, so based on social behavior or personal characteristics. And in general, artificial intelligence systems that manipulate human behavior or circumvent the free will. Of course, the use of AI to exploit the vulnerabilities of people due to age, disability, social or economical situation. So this strict banning has its purpose, and it will be monitorized to see if some possible, if this happened. Interesting for me were the high risk, was this categorization into banned high risk and low risk systems. This categorization generated a lot of discussion, so not everybody agreed if a given application falls into one or another category. Also, concerning banned application biometric identification, there are a lot of exceptions. For instance, for terror recognition and so on, biometric identification could be used or not in justified cases. In any case, if you look over the high-risk systems, you will observe how many social, economical sectors are involved there. And I will read out only an exemplification of the high-risk systems for you to see. So what sort of systems are there? Firstly, an application is considered high risk when the AI system itself represents a certain type of product, AI systems that constitute medical devices, industrial machinery, toys, aircraft or cars, among other examples. Secondly, high risk when the AI system is a safety component of a certain type of product. AI systems used as safety components for rail infrastructure, lifts, appliances, burning gaseous fuels, among other examples. But now I'm coming to the interesting part. All the systems, all AI systems embedded in critical infrastructure, education, systems intended to be used to determine access or administration, or to assign people to educational training institutions. Then employment, AI systems intended to be used in the recruitment or selection process. Access to essential services, both public and private. AI systems that are intended to be used to evaluate eligibility for essential public services or benefits. Law enforcement, immigration, administration of justice and democratic processes. So I think it's really good that the experts involved in this regulation made their thoughts about this. reflected on these possibilities. And what happens in this situation? If the system is considered high risk, then it should be monitored. So what happens with the system should be documented, and this documentation should be provided also to the specific place. So there is an institution that receives, and at the result of this auditing, there is a certification that is entered. So it is this process of risk management system should be involved in. Well, now from my part, the questions stay as well. So I presented you the current regulation and the discussions about this. There are also some dilemmas. Not everything is solved. Now experts are still discussing it. If it is possible to fulfill everything, because it's a lot of work to document everything. And actually, there are also some open questions. On the other side, I gave you these imagine questions. Imagine, for instance, that you are talking with AI bots. You know that they are artificial intelligence because the regulation stipulates this should be communicated as such. But imagine you know it, and you use them, and everywhere you use them. What sort of world is this? How would you feel personally? And who do you think would profit from this sort of world, and who would be disadvantaged? So this is from my part everything now.
Thank you very much for this first input. So we want to discuss this together. So please feel free to say what you're thinking about this.
Maybe about AI Act itself. What do you think about it in general? What is your feeling from this short presentation?
About the fact that you said that it now should be communicated that you're speaking with an AI bot. First, before enrolling into my program, I thought that it would be so obvious to detect whether you're speaking or not with an AI bot. But then there was this university, I can't remember which one, which created this software where they were testing if you notice if you're speaking to a human being or a robot. So, I'd enter there and I'd speak with somebody, and by the end I had to predict which one was it. And I was surprised that quite a few times, I was wrong, which was, surprising. But it's good that now there are laws that make it known for you whether it's an AI or it's a human, or whether it's AI sourced or somebody actually wrote it. And obviously, as human beings, we are creating and continuing to develop this technology to sort of profit from it, rather than live side by side. So it's good that we create regulations that make it known what the limits are of this development. So yeah, it's good that these things are being talked in a serious sense. What should be prohibited, what should be allowed.
Well, I think the breakthrough is quite a big one, the artificial intelligence. From what we know, I mean, the development is a long time in the construction. Since the 60s, I think they are developing artificial intelligence, but just now it's being noticed, and obviously it's already competing with the Turing test, where you say that you cannot tell whether a person is real or not, so, or the computer is doing like as if it was human, yeah. And yeah, well, my point is that it's difficult to find a solution, because I think also from very early, I don't know, I'm excited now. Sorry. I think it's just like the book press made a big impression on the whole development of humans. It's just like this now, and we are getting into it every year. Sorry, I cannot talk now. Yeah.
No problem. We will talk.
I don't know why I'm getting excited now.
Yes, but perhaps because it's public. We are talking publicly. Yeah. So this is it's normal to be excited a little bit. It's completely normal. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe just in agreement with the other speakers, I would say that it's very good that we have certain things that are banned right now and that are also classified as high risk. Because I think that engineers in general just like to explore all the technical possibilities. And especially, for example, CCTV footage. There's a lot of it. And especially when you look into machine learning, you usually need a lot of good data, like very similar data and a lot of it. So this would be probably one of the first ideas of people to go there and do some analysis on it. So I think it's good that it is thought about and maybe prohibited that we go into these directions that are just technically very interesting, but maybe not so good for society.
Interesting input. I never thought about it.
It's also good that we don't really allow AI to sort of give its input in social situation. We talked about how it's not really allowed into categorizing people because, as we mentioned, like in one of these lectures, we sort of transfer our biases into it, so it can be affected by those, and we wouldn't know, and it would be, I don't know, doing wrongs to people.
There is a little difference between categorizing and manipulating. So it is, for instance, a system that enable the selection of a particular person, for instance, for social services, for instance, or childcare. So they are allowed, but the eyes of everybody is on them. So they are characterized as high-risk systems, and they must fulfill a lot of course, the management of bias. So the way they cope with bias should be reflected. Yes, you're right. So this is a very important point because it's where the debate now everywhere emerges from.
Can I ask a question also? So if I ask you what is your main worry, what worries you the most, what would it be? If you think about a certain domain of application, is it medicine? Is it security, surveillance, public? Is it education? Is it the workplace, human resources? Is it cars? What worries you the most?
I think for me it's the personal place, because I think in the future everybody will have bought at home, and so we don't need other people to get involved in the whole thing that's going on. So I think that's the personal space for me, that everybody is becoming more individual, but not for everybody, just for itself. Right?
So isolated and
true.
No social cohesion and no nothing like that. Okay. Why is it a worry? Because it's a...
I don't know. Nowadays, I think we have our smartphones. Yeah. Everybody's just watching it. And we're just trying to talk to everybody around. But the smartphone is just a big thing in our life. And there's a word called zombie. I don't know. The off word, I think, in 2022. And I loved it because I think we're all zombies nowadays. And that's the first thing notice, because we're all getting weniger kommunikativ.
Less communicative.
Thank you. And that's why I think I'm working in a social
Field.
social field. Yeah, that's right. So that's the fear I have for the future. That's why.
Okay. Anyone else?
I have a fear of global manipulation. So AI has huge data sets of human behavior, and I think if it gets into wrong hands, it can be really used to manipulate almost everyone. Yeah, so that would be one of my biggest concerns.
Yeah, how would that look? Do I misread you? Is it political or what?
In any sense, like, yeah, political mostly. Yeah. So, for example, all of us use some kind of social media or read newspapers online, and if AI gets in control of what we see, it can really push us towards what it wants, because it has a huge data sets of our behavior, of not only like global human behavior, but of each of us.
Here. First, like, yes.
I think they do this already without the AI. I think they used it in Brexit already to manipulate people's behavior digitally. And I think that, of course, there is always a problem that it can come more powerful with AI. But I think they do this already. The global manipulation is not except without AI, it will be there anyway. So I think AI is not the biggest threat for this.
No.
I think, yeah, personal education will be help to this, I think.
For me, my biggest fear is misinterpretation, because as a researcher, I don't know, there are some kind of words that AI cannot capitalize on right now. And then as a researcher, you tend to use these words and people feel like, oh, you're digital AI. I'm in the humanities linguistics field, so most of the time I'm always very careful using some kind of words so it doesn't sound AI. So yeah, that's one of my biggest fears. Even recently on social media, it was like a debate as well. So yeah.
It's not my biggest fear, but it was talked about a lot recently in the educational parts of things. That when AI is used, like, how do we get people to do their own work? How do we get, especially children, to fundamentally start writing text, expressing themselves, and all of these very basic skills? Because just as one example, you can really, and I tried this a lot with different tasks, you can really input very low quality stuff into it. So just like brain dump and just write very roughly with a lot of mistakes, no real sentences, for example, into ChatGPT or one of these LLMs, and they don't really care. It doesn't really matter to them. They just understand and give you a pretty high quality answer, or are even able to rewrite what you said perfectly, also in a lot of, so in different qualities, but in a lot of different languages. So you can also input a mix of 2, 3, 4 languages in one sentence, very unstructured, and it answers you in the language that you want. Stuff like this. So I think it might be prohibitive in the future for people to learning to clearly communicate and to learn these basic skills that are very important.
So what is required? What would help? What sort of skills would we need to deal with that?
What do you like? What skills do we need?
Yeah, us. Yeah. let's say it's out there, or put yourself in the shoes of a university teacher, and you get student assignments. They're all written by LLMs. And what skills do I need? And what skills do you need to maybe still learn something?
So the problem is that I don't know. That was also the result of the many discussions, and we don't really know. And what some of the university professors here did, especially, so I study computer science, and they basically said, if you solve all your tasks here with ChatGPT, you are not a valuable worker in the future.
Okay.
Because to secure your job safety, you will probably have to do something that AI cannot do. Because in the future, you have to develop a skill set that goes beyond artificial intelligence. But this kind of self-responsibility is maybe possible for people that are mid-20s in their studies, but probably not so much when I look back at me being 8, 12, 15, I don't know. I wouldn't have cared.
Cool.
I completely agree that we shouldn't be supported or just fully use AI when we're writing stuff or when we're solving different problems maybe school related or work related. But it would also be a big disadvantage for us not to use it at all, because I just believe in work smarter, not harder sometimes, because if there's a source that can help you or just guide you at any type of sense, for you to be, no, I fully don't accept that, I mean, it's going to be in our disadvantage. Obviously, I believe that there should be a limit of what you can use or what you cannot use, but I mean, the fact that we created this technology, it was created for us to use it, so to fully ignore it would be in our disadvantage.
I think there's a difference between using it as a useful resource, as you described, and being dependent on it, because there's a lot of students that use it to solve all of the tasks that you described. And that's one of my fears, is the combined thing of being dependent on ChatGPT, for example, and at the same time the loss of knowledge and skill that comes with it. Because if I'm able to use ChatGPT, for example, for everything in my life, I won't use my brain and think about it myself. And if I lose that competence, I think humans will go backwards.
But then again, if you really use it for proper knowledge, to get proper knowledge, like for example, you said you write any language and it can understand it. You can also ask it to correct yourself if you learn a foreign language, for example. So you can use it for those reasons too. I used it for that, and it's really good. And this is the positive aspect of it. Of course, this is not a fear. This is one positive thing you can take out of it. Or if you do computer science, you can let the computer code for you. But then again, you need to understand what it's doing, and then you can ask back and forth and understand lines of the code and everything. So this is really a help also. But you can use it in both ways. You can use it to cheat, or you can use it to increase your knowledge, your own knowledge.
Technology.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think we have.
I think it's like as I understand with the AI, I don't think it has a bad impact on education, because as example in engineering or like computer science, we mainly study to learn about coding and stuff, so it is a repetitive task. But I think the AI enables us to avoid that, because with the NLMs we can create perfect codes and stuff with less effects, and for that we can focus on a creative part in there. As I studied mechatronic engineering and robotics part. So when I was in bachelor's 6 years ago, we don't have the easy AI tools as ChatGPT. So we have to use so many time for the coding on embedded system and stuff. So but now students can can allocate their time for the designing part rather than the coding. So like because it's a repetitive part, it's a logical part. So, but I think we are way better than the in human brain is way better than in the creative part than in the AI model. So like it's more about the changing on the education systems and our work. Like because like 100 years ago we used to work on so many tasks. Now we are not doing. So like it's like a changing to a different era from
redistribution of tasks on your human machine.
It's like we are going from medieval period to like a technological period, like in the like mechanically developed period. So now we are going from that industrial period to another era. So it's like a transition. I think the rapid growth of along with the rapid growth of the AI, the education system and our focus will need to be changed. So that's why it's I think one of the best example is like the service IT services part. So like supports and configurations and stuff rather than the product development. So I think within the next 20 years it will be fully automated. So when for IT students, I think now it's being like a good coder. In the next 20 years, being a good coding skills will be not that much an important part now. So it will be can do it easily with the other tools.
Thank you. First and second.
To support my colleagues, I would like to say something about my recent experience. I'm studying in game studies and engineering. Recently, I was writing about my experience, my first game that I really liked, and the professor mentioned that we can use ChatGPT, but not intensively. That was the important point. Okay, I decided to try to use it because my friends were laughing at me, saying that you're wasting your time with not using ChatGPT. So then I generated some text about this game, and I didn't like it because it looked like some
French.
No, just advertisement in internet of the game, not my opinion, basically. And I erased it anyway, and yeah. And as during the lecture of Professor Wieser, we got to the point that laziness is the progress's engine. Yeah, it's absolutely okay that we have all this. All this. I forgot the word. Yeah, that we can use all this stuff that we have today, progresses, but we started abusing it. For example, education, as my father says, is the time of ignorance. Yeah. But on the other hand, I work as an online teacher of languages, mostly as a Western languages teacher. And sometimes it's really hard to find some exercises in internet, maybe some books or texts, because some student can be between the level of A1 and A2. And it's pretty hard to find some particular and suitable information for them. And it's really convenient to generate something for them, some big game or text story exercises via ChatGPT. So it's the advantage that my colleague mentioned that we can use to reach our goals. But in terms of education, I'm convinced that we have to stick to the old way of learning stuff.
I just wanted to answer you ask about skills that we might need, not to counteract, but to use it for productivity, I would say. We need more than ever, I think, the skills to validate and supervise the content that comes our way. And as I just said, it's not new, right? Like we always had to have these skills. but I think it gets more important with every like step from library to Google to ChatGPT, so to say. Also because what my colleague just said, ChatGPT usually produces very good texts in the sense that it always tries to make sense, even if it doesn't know what it's talking about at all. And that's why we really need to be able to validate and supervise what it gives us, because the one that is using. So that's just like for personal, right? Like a very.
And the next question would be how?
Yes, that would be what the professors kind of said, right? Build up the skills on your own to be able to see if it tells you something wrong. What I did is ask it things about stuff that I don't know, and it always answers me, and I'm like, wow, that sounds great. And when I sometimes ask it about things that I really do know, it also produces a very plausible, very good sounding answer, but I know that it's just plain wrong. So, but difficult, very difficult.
If I may, I wrote down a few notes. I have a lot more questions to ask to you, but I will not do it. But it ties in quite nicely with what you've said before. And so I had a moment of personal shock just 2 days ago in class when students use not ChatGPT, but DALL-E or whatever for drawing visuals. And so let me convert it into a question. My observation was that ChatGPT and this generative artificial intelligence is essentially a mainstreaming machine. So it erases diversity. This is what I would say. And to tell you a little bit more, so what we were talking about beauty ideals. So what is a beauty ideal, and what contributes to what we do with it and how they matter in society. Then the students make a presentation and they have like different types of ethnicities and all different types of beautiful. And when you look at it, they'll look the same, regardless from where they come. And my conclusion was really that it's a visualization of American prejudices about how people look in the world, and it's so obvious that how inaccurate that is. And so for me, that was a moment of shock, but also a moment of realization that it's completely mainstream. So what do I need to deal with that? What qualification or competencies do I need to assess it? What do I need to understand that this is maybe just prejudices? What enables me to assess it and to make sense of it in some ways or use it in meaningful ways? What do I need for that? And maybe that's also linking up with your historical argument that things change and things and so on. And I think that we may not need things that we needed to know in the past, qualifications, competencies, but we need new ones. And
we need what?
New competencies to deal with it, because these things are out there and sometimes they're pretty obvious, and then like make it obvious, make it transparent, state that you're using it, but sometimes it's less obvious that they have been used in some way or another, and that's the much harder part, I think. But, I went home quite depressed after after a moment of shock, you feel like, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I follow? Yeah, it's very interesting because I think it's also in the core of our discussion today about democracy and diversity inclusion. And you said, okay, ChatGPT is a machinery for mainstreaming, if I understand you right. Yeah, and mainstreaming is the other part or the other pole of diversity, specificity, individuality, etc. We have a very big, famous philosopher in the 20th century, who is called Theodor Wiesengrund Adorno, if you know him, and he talked about identical logic. Yeah, so perhaps it's some kind of mainstreaming. Yeah, identical logic to have this mainstream. But I want to make a connection. If you have ChatGPT or if you have digitalisation, this is a big social machinery for create, of course, some kind of universal room, of course, very dominated by the market, very dominated by the important states, the important players of geopolitics. Yeah, so it's a mainstreaming or identical space. But because I thought at this tension there, we live in social tensions in so many social tensions between understanding. All people during the whole world should understand each other. So there should be a universal, there should be a common language, there should be mainstreaming, because we should understand each other. We should talk simple language to understand each other. On one hand, we should communicate through masses, yeah? And AI or digitalization help us to communicate through masses. But on the other hand, what about these intimacy of little groups? So we have these relationships in little groups, what you talked about, we lose them because we are going into mass communication. Yeah? But this is a tension. We have these tensions between mass communication on the one hand, communication within narrow relationships in little groups. Yeah, this is a social tension. We have a social tension between what Bernhard said, this mainstreaming in a universal logic, yeah, or in a global logic. We want to understand each other in a simple language, in a common language, and this is identical. It's and we are struggling because we know it's identical, it's simple, it's common. So we want to get to the empirical data, to the specific, to the empirical individual data. We want to get it. Yeah, we want to know it. Yeah, and these are these big tensions we are talking about. Yeah, and I find it quite interesting concerning, because Bernhard asked a very interesting question concerning our fears. For me, there are two big fears, but a lot of else as well: sustainability and democracy. Because I'm not sure that this kind of technical transformation now will be really able to use less energy and less resources, less extractivation, and less energy. Yeah, sustainability and democracy. Yeah, but I find these. You all talked about these tensions which are in our societies, yeah? And contradictions, social contradictions which are in our societies. And it's interesting that we cannot differ between the machine and the person, of course, because we as persons also are educated through society, like the machine is educated through society. And of course, it's not so easy to differ, because but I don't understand that you got depressive. Why did you get depressive?
Because I didn't know how to react.
Uh-huh.
It's so instantaneous, and so you're in class, students do something, they put work to it, they give a presentation, and then you start feeling uneasy about it. What do you do? And it's only a short time, couple seconds, minutes maybe, and I didn't know how to react to it.
But if you talk like we talk now, we are talking about experiences now. If we are not ChatGPT now, you all talk about experiences or not?
No, but it's a bit more complicated than I can elaborate here. But it's when you ask me why I felt depressed, because I didn't know how to react, and that's also the first way in which I came across this new generative artificial intelligence. When your students come and tell you how they prepare for lectures, you think, no, I don't even want to know it, right? How do you react? It becomes a reality if education is meaningful. How? You need to make up your mind, and it's not. There is no quick fix for it.
Okay. For me, there is one very big chance for education. It's the performance. I think performance will become much more, or discussions like we do it here. The performance, like we all cannot perform like this if we're only ChatGPT. Or not?
Yes.
Talk about experiences. No.
We should ask the students.
Yeah.
But I share your concern. So every day, because it's about validation of the knowledge on the one side, and it is about the concern about the future of the students themselves. What you just said from this part, I don't know which of you, but it was about the answer of the professor. What could be done in this situation? Rely on your own future, on the building of your future, because if you are not good enough, no ChatGPT will help you. So you have to work on yourself, actually. So this is what I'm concerned too.
But this is not as he said. This works for very aged pupils or students, but it doesn't work for a 12-year-old boy, like he said, or girl person. Yeah.
But like I was in education for all my life basically, and for most of it I just felt like I'm doing tasks because I have to do them, because this will get me to my grade. There was, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10% where I was actually creative thinking, group work, like productive discussion. Most of it was stuff that can now be generated by an AI, and a student will think, okay, this is basically, it's doing the work for me, it's making my life easier. But I think education or teachers should show that the pupils what the AI can do and what the AI can't do. And then the pupils, like, I think, like, humans like learning, humans like discovering stuff, creating stuff. So if you show that even to a small child, to a teenager, and if you animate them enough, if you really encourage them enough, which is insanely difficult, I do not wish to have this job. I think that the students will also realize, okay, this is some powerful but mainstreaming tool that can produce a lot of information quickly, and it can accomplish my tasks really quickly. But there's also like this joy in doing things on my own, but the tasks have to be different. They have to be like completely reimagined, because yeah.
Also, in addition, I would like to say that we'll take an example, writing an article, science article, and some students use different resources, and somehow they pass plagiarism software applications. But writing an article, it's is about saying something new, right? Whereas ChatGPT generates only that information that has been already told or generated or created. Yesterday we have a situation creating a game. We wanted to create some poster via some artificial intelligence, and it created just the picture that we have already seen somewhere. I mean, some details, different details from different games, cartoons, and then our producer told us that we had to ask someone to order a picture for the poster. It's nothing new using artificial intelligence, and getting an education means to say something new, to express your own opinion, to open something new in the field of science or maybe not.
Yeah.
In defense of AI, I feel like we as human beings like to dissociate ourselves from the bad stuff. We like to villainize, for example, AI, but plagiarism existed long before ChatGPT. It's not like it just appeared the moment ChatGPT got launched. But it has to do with how much we can restrict ourselves, because people could still go online and just copy-paste some information from some outer sources and bring it in as their own. The accessibility of ChatGPT and other AIs makes it easier for us to do so, but it still has to do with, I don't know how reserved we are as people, or how focused we are on delivering some actual work, some original work. But
what's the conclusion of that? So I'm the examiner, I get your master thesis, and I need to say by my signature, this is compliant with the current standards of academic work, and no plagiarism has been found. I need to sign that, and I need to say I've tried to test. So I have this software, I run it through, I look it through, and I say this is okay. This is no plagiarism. So you put me in a situation to be the judge or the policeman for your work, okay?
yeah, that's been the case mostly.
Yes, as a teacher, as a policeman, okay. But the argument is, okay, it's been always like this, but what? Give up? Don't care?
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes, just fun. Oh, sorry.
No.
Yes, I think it's pointless to talk about it because we can't stop this development of AI, and as it goes further, it develops more and more, and it becomes more intelligent, more creative, more original. And as already told, if GPT uses only previous information, there are already AIs that can create something new. For example, videos or pictures. Because of the data they work with, they can create something new. And with time, it will be even worse with that. And I don't know if any police activities will help with it, because I can rephrase it. For example, even without the GPT, I can just look the article in the internet and rephrase it myself.
So let's give up. Let's give up.
I don't know.
It's a lost cause anyway.
I think it's a lost cause because how can we can't tell everybody, so it's bad to use it, so don't use it. I mean, like it's just rules that can be checked.
Examination. Examination will be completely.
Yes, as I think you make now a very big critique of university didactics, because university didactics are very bad. If you only see your student when he gives you the final work and you never talk to the student before, of course, then you can give up. Yeah, but you have to talk with the student. Of course, you're in a constant dialogue with the student, and this is the thing. You have the performance of the person. And I work with children, with little children, and I'm not the policeman of the children. I'm also the policeman, but I'm the experience. I'm the co-life person. I'm living with these children, and I make experiences with these children. And the children, they experience each other, and I live with them. I make this like we are doing now. And this is the way to reform the didactics. And they are bad didactics at university, yeah? And you don't need any more written pages and pages. You need the performance and the meaningful and the meaningful dialogue with the other person, and then you see we understand or we don't understand.
Yeah, I would just another point that not so much in university, but maybe in primary school. If in former times a pupil failed in writing an exam and a work at home, for example, he could ask his parents, his mother, his father, and if he had a parent who could deliver that, it was okay. It was something like ChatGPT now, but other pupils might not have had that. Maybe they had parents who didn't speak German, for example, or stuff like that. So you have another different point also from here. So I think that's also to consider. Now you have a mentor always at your side. You can ask ChatGPT. For example, it's universal, and yeah, it's another whole other story to it.
Referring to your point, I think it's impossible to do this every day at university. As for example, when there are so many different subjects for professors to do in like hundreds of students, it's impossible to build a personal relationship with each one of them.
But you can do discussions like this.
Not in every subject. Like, for example, if it's social studies, maybe, but if it's math or if it's, I don't know, like, it's really hard to do.
Physics, chemistry, anything that's exact knowledge. It's a bit difficult.
I think maybe in the end we have to define the role and the position of humans and the role position of on AI, and this should be clear for everybody, because I know the students and my students do have a lot of fears when using ChatGPT in a meaningful way. So they can, for instance, in ethical assessment of a given application, they may use ChatGPT and they may compare the results also with their own impressions and with the literature, for instance. So it would be quite interesting to see the differences and then so. But if we communicate them, this is your role this is your job. To consult ChatGPT, to look over, to test this technology, and then to compare, to use everything you know, and then to reflect on it. Then this is clear for them. They don't have any fears anymore. But if we make this not intransparent, if we make this intransparent and leave them to do what they want and only examine them, then we have a problem, maybe in the end. So I don't know. It should be stipulated somewhere what could be done. No.
Totally at your point of view, because I think the tests or the bachelor seminar or the master seminar, I think they're all only sites and words. You know?
Yeah, what?
You're just words for me. The performance, you don't get it. You can sit right at home, just write something like this. You need some books. Just write it from the books. So, okay, you do this once. When you don't like it, and in work, you just talking to everybody and just try to get involved, I think. So I think it's very important for me, when I'm finishing my university, I want to talk to everybody and just say to them, hey, I'm ready for this. Not just giving them a paper and say, it's my thing, just write it and thanks, bye, it's done. That's really hard for me. So I don't get it, because back in the days, they were just only talking, you know, just cheating talking, just talking about everything. And that's the thing the university, I think, doesn't do for us, or for me especially. And that's why I think the performance is the best thing I heard for a long time. Yeah.
Just as a very small idea about like bachelor or master thesis, is something a professor said to me, I think last week, was that basically if I take for a project a very basic approach, so the main task is not very difficult, you will have to grade me more heavily on ingenuity and like novelty, quality of the outcomes, and would look very closely at all the small steps if the basic task is not so complicated. Maybe in the future, if master and bachelor theses are mostly kind of generated, so the text is generated, that's also quite possible because the structure is very clear, and very structured, very clear text is very easily generated, right? It might shift the focus, and I think we had that many times before, right? It might just shift like the focus of the reviewer, different quality standards. You can't just hand in like something that you have written and like pass, but it has to be something like interesting new, even for bachelor theses, right? And right now I think it's mostly that bachelor theses just have to be something, right? Something that someone wrote up, but maybe the quality standards will just shift because the basic task of writing 40 pages of something will be very easy in the future, probably. So then the assessment has to shift. But it's, yeah, just an idea. So that might be one way of accepting that this exists now.
Okay, thank you very much for this very interesting discussion. Now we go to Bernhard's input. Please.
No break, just
no
straight
break?
down.
Or do you want to have a break? Yeah, for 10 minutes? Yes? Okay? Okay, let's have a break.
Okay. Okay. So I promised that I present something from my own work, and I'll be brief, I'll be short, and not exceed 20 minutes. So I skipped the personal introduction. I hope some of you remember me. What I do is I have an interest in the digital technologies and the way in which they produce knowledge. That's quite simply put what is at the center of this research. What's the role of digital technologies in creating knowledge? And that's a very broad question, of course, and it's difficult to answer. So what you do is you narrow it down to something more tangible that you can actually research. And this example, what I've been looking into is citizen science. So I'm not looking into science all across, but just into citizen science. And this is where I want to start and what I want to talk about today. So citizen science is basically the idea is that you engage ordinary people, people like us, people from society all across, and engage them into practices of knowledge production of some sort. And the knowledge that is being produced should be in some ways scientific, or it should have that element. And now you can do this, and many people do this all over the world. And for some of this, not for all of them, but for some of them, you can use digital technologies. And mostly they use something to measure something. And I brought a device here, which is this one. My cable is not long enough, but you can have a look in the break. There's a sensor, and it measures air quality. So it measures microparticles. Is it hazardous for us to sit here and to breathe? Is it not? What's the air quality? It also measures temperature and humidity, but the main thing is air quality. So what I'm trying to do is, when I want to study knowledge practices, I need to find a case study, something that I can study, and I have to have which is this, and I have to have a research question. And my research question for it is there a quality discourse in citizen science? And that notion of, is there a quality discourse, is simple for how do we know that it is true? I've been touching upon this discussion just before, when we are confronted with some ChatGPT thing, how do we know it's actually true, right? It's just something, but how do we know? And not going into this, but the same question was asked with Wikipedia, but there we got an answer and said, well, there is a process that makes sure it's true because so many people look and check. And there is a discussion until consensus is reached. So you have a process that ensures quality and make sure it's actually accurate, what's being presented to you. With ChatGPT, we don't know. So partly also why I'm doing this, what I do with citizen science and the rest of it, and the reason why I'm looking into the quality discourses is because I want to know if people who engage in these knowledge practices with digital technologies and ask themselves, between them and discussing, is it true or is it just something? So that's the interesting part. The way in which I do it, just method, a quick note about it, I'm doing a qualitative analysis of the forum discussions of these citizen science projects. They look like this. They have a website, not all, but many have a website in which they visualize the results of the work they do, and they make it available for other people to just to have a look at what it's like. So if you have a sensor like this, it sends a signal, it goes to the internet, and then produces a map like this, and you're one of the tiny little dots here on the map that says green is very good, but in Scandinavia or north of Poland, there are some yellow dots which suggest it's not so good. So what you're doing here, it's not just individual, you don't just measure for yourself, but you have a collective element in it, right? So you're building a map that everybody contributes. And here, in the top section, that's actually why I wanted to show it, in the top section of this map, you have also a link, which I can't show really well, but you have a link for a forum. So you can click on the forum, and the forum is a place where the participants of this citizen science project discuss. And that's where I can go as a researcher, I can read it, and I can find out, are they discussing quality issues? And they do, that's the answer. Okay, so let me continue. Are there some quality issues related to it? And yes, there are. There are essentially 4 problems with when you measure air quality with a device like this. First of all, it's the quality of the sensor itself, right? You always have a margin of mistake. You can say in percentage of how big is the mistake, and you can quantify that. And that's the first question. How accurate are the sensors that are being used? Second question is sensor positioning and handling. What about the local influence, right? So if it's next to the window, to the heating or something, does that have an impact? Is anybody smoking outside or something like that? Sensor positioning and handling has a local influence. Third element is relative humidity. I'll come to that. But the readings are sensitive to relative humidity. And the last point that is an issue here is setup alterations. When you start tinkering with this box and you make your changes and think you have a better solution for that. So all of these 4 factors impact on the quality of the readings that you get, that you produce, and you make available for others. So quickly go through them and explain that a little bit. The first issue is with the sensor accuracy itself. Later in the break I'll show you how it looks like. And the sensor they use is called SDS-011. Has a problem, has a systematic underestimation of the readings. So the pollution is actually higher than it tells us. Okay, so do people know that? Yes, they do. Okay, so people in the forum, they discuss this variation, they tell each other, Well, I found this paper by Hoffman et al. 2002, and it tells us our sensor is actually not accurate. What do we do about it? So they don't only know it, but they also propose solutions because these are clever people. They say, well, I found a way to act upon it, so I suggest you should have a software correction and calibrate the sensor and make it much more accurate. I have images. It's a bit difficult to show you, but I'm trying to show it to you, or maybe not. I'll show it to you later. You can barely see it here, but there is a little graphs that show you how you do the software calibration. There are 3 different lines, the good one, the bad ones, and the corrected ones. I'll show you later. Okay, so this is literature they discuss. They know the problem, they know solution, and they discuss it between them. So that's very impressive, I thought. Next problem, humidity. That is another issue related to the accuracy of the data that you produce. And the reason is that if under conditions of humidity higher than 70%, your readings are essentially not good. You get overestimation. So they suggest the pollution is much higher than it actually is. Relative humidity is a factor that is influenced by temperature. So high temperatures, the air can absorb more moisture. Lower temperature, it loses the capacity, and then you have dew and steamy winters and stuff where the moisture can't be contained in the air. And that is the key to the solution that the users propose, because it's the same thing. Do they know? Yes, they know. But they don't only know, but they also suggest a solution. And the solution they suggest, you can see it maybe here, they say let's preheat the air, because when we heat the air, the relative humidity gets lower and our readings get accurate. So let's put in a heating element into this hose here, and if we have a heating element, we will be fine. We will be fine. Okay, so next problem is fixing one problem but creating a new one. And that leads to setup heterogeneity. What it means is that if I start tinkering with the box and building my heating element and you don't, what then? We have different types of instruments and we all upload our data to the map, but we have a mess here, right? And that's the next problem, that we have no control over the setup of the participant. They all start tinkering, they all start preheating, they all start using their software corrections, and then we have, and that's the problem, inconsistency in the data. If the participants don't comply, our data are really not so good anymore. And my question again, do the participants know this? Are they aware of this problem? Yes, they are. Do they discuss this? Yes, they do. And I'll give you a quote from this forum discussion that I was mentioning, that you see what it is like. So one participant writes in the forum and notifies his fellow citizens about the problem and says, I wasn't sure that the sensor community supported heating the air input, as there isn't a way of recognizing this in the data for the community map. Okay? So quite quickly, straight to the point, if we start tinkering, how do we know on the map? And continues, he or she. Have we come to a definitive answer on the approach to high humidity and obtaining more accurate PM data? So that is also super interesting, because here this person suggests that we need to have a consensus, because we need to have the same setup, otherwise our quality is compromised. I continue. Implementing the such and such changes would mean a diversion away from the sensor community preferred setup. What do you suggest as the best way forward? So again, the person tries to convince the rest of the forum that we need to be on the same page. We need to have an agreement. This is very scientific in some sense, because that's what we do. We discuss if we and when we disagree until the point where we can agree. So that sounds quite impressive. Are you impressed? I am. No? I thought that is really mind-blowing. But the question now is, does anybody care? Does anybody know? Does anybody care? So how many of the participants would actually be aware of this problem that I've just described? When you go back to the website, it will tell you that there are 13,000 sensors all over the world. Remember the map. It's mainly continental Europe, but there are also UK and outside of Europe. Less so, but still there are some sensors from all around the world. Okay, so how many of these 13,000 users would actually participate in this quality discourse, right? And then it's maybe less exciting, because there is only a very, very small number of participants that engage in this forum discussion. I tried to count, it's maybe 15 people that actually exchange their ideas about it. So 15,000, 13,000 and 15 people discussing is not much. Okay, so you may say maybe just a few more, or the majority is reading, and so they is aware of following it and the way in which we use social media. Mostly we just passively watch, right? Maybe there's this silent crowd. But with these websites, they have a counter, and you can also get an idea about how many views. Okay, and the number of views is of course higher. But of those who engage, they go and check several times. They read something, write something, they check if somebody has answered, nobody has answered, they check again, somebody else has answered, they check again, and so on. So the people that are actively contributing are viewing these pages several times, and they make perhaps half of the views between the 15, and then there are others who just come and observe it. The bottom line here is that the reach is very small. So you have the clever people, they talk about it, they're very, very clever, they come forward with all these fantastic ideas, but it isn't a whole lot. Now we can also try to understand the way in which this discourse becomes effective for the sensor community on a whole, and the forum of the citizen science official, the people who run the project, they are attentive and they are also participating in the quality discussion. They follow, they also engage in the discussion, but as yet they have not implemented any of the suggested changes. So no heating, no software calibration, which means that the data as we have it are not so high quality. And this is where I want to stop, and I have questions for you. Maybe you find them interesting to discuss. So how do you, and I mean you all here, assess the role of digital technologies in citizen science project as a means to democratize science? Is this something that could help us? So what's the potential of citizen science? What is its potential for democratizing it? And how do you specifically understand the role of technology in this relation? And the floor is yours now. In the break, maybe you need a moment to think about it. I can show you. This one is measuring right now. Oops. Not very good. Okay. So it's measuring right now, and we have about 1 microgram per cubic meter. So that's the new reading. That's from when I tested it at home. That's the new one. We're pretty good. Right? So
Of what? Of what?
It's microparticles, microgram in cubic meter. Okay. So that's the measure. So this one that's measuring right now is PM25, PM10. So, okay, this one. So we're doing quite fine, okay. So if you're interested in the break, come to me. We do more of that, and you have a. But what do you think? Is this meaningful?
A hard question to discuss about here.
Yeah. Why?
I think science is too political. I think, or the political thing is too big to get science in there for me. But it's very important to have science working for the community, for every community, just for the air or for I think the pollution of the cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very important.
Yeah.
But politicians, I think, in my opinion, they don't taking it that serious.
Okay.
Just saying it, okay, it's perfect for 5 years. That's my Amtszeit. I don't know the word in English. And after that, it's gone. It's okay. The scientists also research every long time.
Okay. So do I understand? You're suggesting it's perhaps not so meaningful because it has no effect in the political world.
It is very, very meaningful for us,
for the
not for the
people
politicals, but yeah.
But it doesn't. It's not effective on the political.
It's not effective. That's
okay.
right.
Okay. Okay.
Or not that effective.
Okay.
I think one positive effect might be that some people, especially in the last years, strayed further away from trusting in science.
Yeah, okay.
Because I think they often feel that scientists are doing something very complicated, very far away from what a normal person can do and experience. And maybe these kinds of participatory projects might help for that. Maybe also if this device, for example, is explained in detail, so that everyone can understand what they have there and what they are really measuring and where it's going, and it might increase the trust in like I can participate in science.
Divide.
To ask you about the people themselves who enroll in the program.
Yeah.
How do they participate? How are they recruited or interested?
How they recruited? I can tell you how I was recruited. So I sit at home and I just Google randomly about air pollution, and it cuts the place where I live has a reputation for bad air, and I was just. I think I tried to find a device for measuring indoor air quality. So you try different things. And while doing this, I came across the website and I started reading. And I thought it's brilliant. And I thought I have to have it. So it's I wasn't recruited personally, but just coming across it through internet browsing, and then you order the device and they have a detailed instruction of how you can set it up, what you need to do to run it, and it's explained in a way that it's possible for most of us, I would say. So put it together, set it up, and send my signals to the web.
You were particularly interested in the topic, and then you have a question.
Yeah. Because I just thought about, I think democratization was a part of it. I think for that, it might also be interesting because on the other hand, you could also have the government put these stations everywhere. Yeah. And probably some people would be very skeptical about this again. So maybe giving like the devices and, as you said, the details to the people themselves and letting them do like decentralized work goes better with a lot of people and in a more democratic sense than having government devices everywhere that send again to a central station that is not like regulated by the public.
Nice. That's very interesting. I forgot something, and I'll come back to you to what Oana said. The project started in Stuttgart. And Stuttgart is the best city in Germany with the worst air. It is in a basin, so you have a like Klagenfurt actually. You have this inversion situation sometimes, where the air is colder in the valley and then sun and everything above it. So that is also the case in Stuttgart, where the air doesn't move, and that's part of the reason that it keeps accumulating in Stuttgart. And that is a well-known problem for a long time. And it started as a local project in Stuttgart, where people did this in a very, neighborhood type of engagement. People started to talk to each other. We should do something. There were those people had been working at the university. So that's also another part about citizen science, that it's never like nobody knows anything about it, but it's basically people who know something from different types of backgrounds. They bring together what they know and then they start creating something and do something together. And it was also in Stuttgart, where they put their heads together in trying to design such a device, measure the whole thing, and set up a website for everything. But it's a local thing. It started as a local thing to act about pollution locally for the city of Stuttgart and make the policymakers respond. And it was so successful that it quickly grew beyond the local context, because so many people thought it's a very cool idea, including myself. And so the idea was so interesting that many people wanted to do the same. They set up their census wherever they were, and it very quickly grew. So the local thing and the relationship to the policymaker was an important element from when it started. Yeah, I think so.
Are you just measuring the pollution, or just looking for a solution also?
Yeah, the idea, the solution is make policymakers react, and
okay.
Yeah. And to your question again, so the broader picture of that is that we have a law in Austria and in other countries that the state is required to measure air quality and has to produce a report, and that is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 1999, 2000, around that time. And ever since, it's mandatory by the state in Klagenfurt. You have two of the stations. I can look up where they are, but I think one is quite close to here. So the air is monitored nationwide, and it's a legal requirement for the government to make sure that these stations are in place, and that a report is published and made available to everyone. And it's not as grim as it might seem, but over time the situation has improved quite significantly across Austria, in Graz, where I live. It has improved. And I just read 2 days ago that the limits in Europe for what is a tolerable threshold has been lowered, I think by half roughly. But if you read it optimistically, it's going towards the right direction. So,
is this what in German you would call Feinstaub, or is it something? Is it
Feinstaub? Microparticles in English, Feinstaub.
Okay.
There are other aerosols, I think is the word, that are also being measured. But to keep it simple, that's the main thing.
I want to say I thank you very much for this very important example, because I think it's very important for democratizing not only science, but for democratizing civil society in states, in societies, but also for democratizing digitalization. Because as you said, as you erzählen, as you what is erzählen in English? Told, thank you very much. As you told us the story, this is the story as well from the beginning of science, but we forget this as well, yeah. And because we have to invent procedures, new procedures, yeah, to secure the qualities. But also it's important, I think, for technicians all over the world, because it shows us why isn't it possible, for example, to organize ourselves all over the world as technicians, for example, as digital workers, yeah, through these kinds of procedures, yeah. It's a kind of civil. Wouldn't you say it's civil society? What here is, or it's part of civil society? No?
I'm positive towards it. Otherwise, I would not have engaged. So, yeah, and I think there are different elements to it, and one is what you have described as trust, and so what you learn about pollution, but you learn about other things too. Yeah. You learn how to create a community, how to organize it, and how to set up an agenda to do something meaningful together. And you need to agree on what you want to achieve, how to do it, and so on. So you learn a lot about the social process about it, which is meaningful in itself. But you also learn about pollution. And when you do this, of course, you do a lot of background research, and in addition to the narrow focus of it, you have also learned a lot more in the, not in the social way, but in the, let's say, in the science of the pollution. And so that's another element, and you learn about, I think, the scientific method, if I may call it, and the way in which it plays out, because it's never as straightforward as it may sometimes, the polished version of it in the publication. So that was our methods, that's our findings, and that's our conclusion. So you always get the polished version of it, and you don't see the struggles or the frustration in making things work and putting things together. So by engaging and doing, you also learn this more hidden elements of the scientific process. And if you want, and if you even take it a little bit further, you also learn about the way in which, and that was my interest in why I was doing this, because when do we know something? When do we know something, and how can we be certain? That's so fundamental to science, and we ask these questions because there is not a straightforward answer to it. And so how do we answer it? How does the scientific community answer it? they come together and talk. That's basically it. And in a citizen science project, you also engage in a process that is comparable. And so I would, perhaps it's fair to assume that in an implicit way you learn it, because you do it, and you participate in the same kind of practices that tell you or show you the way in which knowledge is being created. It's not just that, but it's also the sitting together, negotiating. How do we do it? How do we design the website? Should we? What type of scale should we use, and the rest of it? When you discuss all of that, you learn a lot about science and how it is done. So perhaps the scientific method also. Trust may be an element of it, but transparency may be another one. Demystifying it may be an element of it. And making it yours, that's another part. Ownership, like owning it. Not being victim to what the experts say who don't care about us and they only mean bad. But you're part of it. And that changes also your relationship, I would assume. But it's how I see it. I should stop talking and you should say what you think.
Maybe you can just relate to the last part of this feeling of producing something, of being the middle of everything. It was recently during the Corona times, there was this distance and a bit of, not offensive, but this negative attitude towards science and technology too. And I think this could be a very interesting way to get people acquainted again. Maybe the ones who are not were really mistrustful, and get to them again, to gain them for the cause. And a lot of people talk about who will be in science. So what sort of people will pursue science? So what sort of gender categories, what sort of social categories, and so on. And maybe it could be a good way to gain the disadvantaged categories for the same purpose and to attract their interest. So I cannot only add only positive things to you. The meaning, the results themselves that are produced. I had a question about their relevance, quality, and validity. Are they is there any Begleitungsprozess? Is there any scientific evaluation, cooperation, also the experts, or what is the outcome?
Yeah, well, that's not so easy to answer. I've been reading literature about citizen science projects, and so I try to understand what other people have written about this. Is there literature about quality discourses in citizen science projects? And what I found is that some say yes, they are, we do it, but then it's hard to say what they do and how it really plays out. But it's an issue for many of the citizen science project that you need to make sure that the quality is all right. And often when you take it to policymakers, when you make that link, when you say we've collected data and we want you to do something about it, the first response that you get from the politicians is it accurate, right? So then you're in the middle of it, that you need to prove that what you're presenting is actually sound. And so in that sense, in a situation in which you're engaging it because you want to achieve something and you have someone you is your addressee, someone you are speaking to, your audience, your target audience, and say, you should be looking at this and you should do something about it, then they will come back to you and ask you, is it worth anything? So you need to make an argument, and that's another element of it. That's also true for science, right? You need to answer these questions. And yeah, so I think there is literature about this element. Yeah, and but I suppose there is a lot where there isn't much, but it's hard to say.
I want to ask if there is, because I think it's a very interesting topic, very, very important topic for the themes of diversity, of democratization, of criticism, of expertocratism, also about how to make science, of course, yeah. But why is it now? Because before, at the input before, we had such a vivid discussion. And now it's so hard to discuss for you. And for me, it's interesting now, why is it so hard now to discuss to this topic? Please think. What is the problem now with this topic? Is it too abstract, or is there the connection or the link to digital? Yes?
I think that many of us don't have deep expertise in it.
Ah, okay, you don't have deep, but this is about democratization.
It isn't doing the job.
Yes, we are learning all together. Yes, and therefore we want to discuss, because we only can learn if we discuss together with it. Yeah,
because a lot of people, especially students, don't feel comfortable to ask questions.
Okay.
Because they feel that this question can be seen too much stupid.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why if you would like to ask a question, it seems that you would like to be out of your comfort zone, and in fact, it's a stress for ourselves. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yes.
I think also the very basic answer is that AI tools, what we kind of talked before, is very embedded in all of our lives, and it was highly discussed in the last year, I guess.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's why probably everyone had to say something about it.
Yeah.
And it's less embedded in our everyday work. And also, I, for example, would have some more technical questions about this, but I think it's not about this, right? As you said, about democratization and all of this. So I should not ask about how is the dashboard made, what are the sensors, how is the data collected, stuff like this. So yeah, I don't know.
I feel that the majority of people, since they don't have a specific specialization, how to understand or interpret the values coming from the device, and also if they don't feel like they're being single-handedly affected by that air pollution, if they aren't majorly affected, they just see the whole subject as too abstract for them to give opinions, and they feel like, oh, I should probably focus on these other problems rather than just go out of my way, leave more major problems and just deal with these stuff. So that's maybe why people don't get too worried about this type of stuff. But it's good. It's good, and we should know more about it. So we don't just leave it to the people with the expertise, but we also give our opinion, give our interpretations, or I don't know, talk and want to get these devices spread out in the world. Maybe you can give us a coaching advice how to talk in this kind of topics.
Don't just engage. Don't think double, think too complicated. Just speak your mind.
Let me ask a very ignorant question. Why do we talk about democratization of the digital space or science? Like, what is the problem? I don't know about it. Like, why do we talk about this?
Good point. Yeah, I can, yeah.
How much effect does our opinion have? That's my question for it. Because demos is the folk, or the people, everybody, and I think that the scientists should work for us as people, get with problems like the air pollution and every other topic. I think we're too dumb for something, or not especially qualified for every topic. So I think it's very important the scientists are searching for us, for everybody, to get the whole thing together to make this planet a better place. And I don't know what to discuss about democracy. I think we should live like this, every one of us, and we should help everybody. Okay. So the scientists, they're a little bit smarter than we, I think. They should look for problems and maybe involve everybody. Just ask them. But in a very, very, I don't know, leichte Frage. You know?
Easy?
An easy question, yeah, for everybody, so everybody can understand.
Just for me personally, because I study computer science, I feel like AI is basically my lane. So as I develop myself and my career, it's always going to be in contact with me. And because of the social media and all the information I'm getting every day, I just feel I don't have the energy to really fight for equality and women's rights and the war in Palestine and the democratization of science. Just another thing I have to, I don't know, fight my way through it and give my opinion and change something. I'm just kind of tired of it.
Also, to add to what he said, as a general public, we can have an idea of what that does and how it affects us, but there are people who specialize in that field, and he said, like, they work for us, we work for them. It's just like this relationship.
I'm a bit skeptic about this.
Why?
Yeah, well, it didn't work in COVID, for instance. We had the scientists, they told us what they thought we should do, and people were not really prepared to follow. Huh?
Do you think politics affect this? Because I think, like the FPÖ said, not everybody, but they were against the Impfpflicht, you know. Yeah. So it's just like when you're just electing for, or wählen is elect, elect FPÖ, you just have to say it doesn't work. And that's the big thing in the internet, I think, is the fake news. This was the big problem.
But we had scientists.
We have so much fake scientists. Like
the committee, and the committee was advising the government.
True.
The government was not listening to fake news. They were looking for the experts in the field, just as you said. Let's ask the scientists. They made recommendations, but we didn't like it. Or
we as the public or the government?
Yeah, the public. The public.
Yeah, I feel like the majority of population listened to them, but if like there was the case that a few groups didn't, and those groups affected themselves and the others, but you can't expect everybody to just, I don't know, accept some politics or accept a decision. There will always be people disagreeing with something.
They had some scientists paid to
there's quite a lot.
Statistics. Yeah, quite a lot through that. That's why I think the science are getting.
Okay, let me. Maybe I can give a better answer to this. So the question is, and that's interesting, is the relationship between science and policy making or politics, and the way in which they are linked. And there is more answers to this, of course. So one way of answering this is that science has nothing to do with politics. It's a separate domain, and what people do in politics has nothing to do with science, because science is neutral. Okay, so that's one version of it, and it has also historic reasons why this idea about science was being so prominent, and why it is so persistent also, that there are some historical reasons for that. It goes back basically to the 17th century, when modern science emerged. Okay, so you have this, science is neutral, has nothing to do with politics. at all. But then we have another element of the discussion, and that is how should policymakers make their decisions? How should they propose what we should do? And a lot of it is science-based. And maybe some of you would also share this expectation in policymakers that whatever they do should be on a solid, sound knowledge base. When they make laws about pollution, I want them to have a look at the science. If they can't understand it, I want them to talk to scientists. I want them to consult expert advice. That's the whole idea of technology assessment. Expert advice for policy making. So there is a linkage between science and policy making because we want political decisions to be based on solid and sound science. Pollution, health, and so on. We want this knowledge base to be sound. And coming back to the COVID, when the government suggests that we should do this or that, we want the knowledge base to be sound. We want them that the measures are effective. We want them that they don't harm us. And we want them that it is based on the best knowledge available. When we have vaccination, we want it to be safe. So how do we know it's safe? Because it went through a scientific assessment that has produced all the tests and everything and say it's a safe thing and it's effective. I want to know whether all of this has a sound knowledge, scientific knowledge base. And in such a way, the knowledge and the policy making comes together. And just to cut my long story short, the question is, can you have democracy without truth or science? Is that possible? And if you ask me as a person, not as an academic, and perhaps half an academic, but I think what happens at the moment, and it's easier to talk about it when we look at the United States, what the Trump people do is they perform a full-blown attack on the idea of truth. The truth is not something that we can all find out with specific methods, but truth is a matter of who is more powerful. And because I say it's true.
No, that's true, but that is or cultural. I think it's a big cultural thing also. You have some religions, you have some politicians, but it's not only politics and science, it's much more.
Yeah.
It's a big thing. So you have the cultural thing. I think that's why it doesn't work in Austria. We're just saying it worked, or maybe the COVID thing, I think. Because it's what, I don't know the English word, the Selbstjustiz is not that often in our culture, I think. But
yeah, but we also have similar problems. I will put it like this. It's easier to talk about the United States because it's so far away and it doesn't hurt as much. And we don't need to go to find out what we think about it and where we stand in our own country. But I would make the argument that we have very similar problems. And we also have elements in our society, in the political landscape, who do the same. It's a full-blown attack on the idea of truth. Yeah. And that is science and the media. That's the second target, to discredit media as something that doesn't tell the truth. And the question is, do we need it for democracy? That's the link. Can we have democracy without trying to have an idea about how we achieve to think that something is true?
We have two persons. First, second.
So can we please summarize? So, for example, during the COVID, it was forbidden everything. If you don't have, 4 stages of vaccination, you won't be able to go to universities and even shopping. And in fact, the state made from us enemy if you don't have a vaccination, in fact. But at the same time, for example, officially, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, AstraZeneca officially reported that the vaccine had really strong side effects. Mm-hmm. So how we can react in this situation right now, and how we can...
So that's how you fail.
Yeah.
The state made you an enemy.
No, in fact, yes. So if you didn't have vaccination, you won't do anything. You just locked at home, and that's all. And in fact, you won't be able to go to the universities. Specifically, if you speak about Austria, that's why you just lose your student status, and that's all.
Mm-hmm. Not in my university.
I speak about Vienna. Okay.
I had students who have not been vaccinated. I have colleagues who have not been vaccinated. We try to manage.
But I speak generally. A big percent of people had to be vaccinated if
they were separated from us. We were on the concert and we were in a circle. They all had to stand out only for that reason.
And now, when we see official reports of pharmaceutical companies and how we can react right now when we potentially we can be harmed.
Can be
harmed. I don't know, harmed by vaccinations.
Harmed by a vaccine. Yeah. So how do we know? How do we know? How do we find out?
I had a little bit of a different point. I just wanted to. It's not really an addition. I just wanted to rephrase something, if I understood that correctly. I thought when you talked about truth in the end, is it the notion of, with modern science, we had in many topics the feeling of, or like the general notion of, there is an objective truth that can be like found out with certain methods, or like there can be at least a certain state that we believe is true, and it gets developed further and further. And now there has been a shift towards the notion of the truth. It's in the eye of the beholder, which is...
So you're creating a spectrum here. One is, let's say one extreme is that there is an objective truth and it's out there. It exists even without us. And if you're lucky, we can find it and follow it, discover it. That's one extreme way of looking at it, that truth exists as independent of us, right? And then the other spectrum is relativism. So everybody has their own idea about truth. Yours is not better than mine. That's relativism. And in academia, there is very few people who go that far. So when you say that's relativism, basically it's a killer argument, and because it's almost an illegitimate position. Extreme relativism, I only know Paul Feyerabend. That's the one who articulated this position, and I think just for the sake of articulating it, I think he didn't believe it in himself. But we have it as an extreme end of the spectrum. So this completely objective truth out there, and the relativism is just anybody's guess or whatever people like. And then we have the in-between thing, right? And we have different shades or different versions between that spectrum of relativism and, let's call it, absolute truth type of idea. And then the question is, how do we agree and where do we settle? Let me put it like that. And in the scientific community, you have processes, I think, that make sure that you agree on a method, really, how you settle that question, whether something is true or not. That's what we do. We make knowledge propositions. We say, I found out. And we have a process in criticizing each other by looking into the methods, essentially, whether or how this is being produced. And if you have a let's say the scientific community agrees and you have a consensus, then you would say, well, that's an established truth, scientific truth. That's an established scientific claim, and the scientific community agrees to it. That's by and large how the system works. There are other versions that are bringing in more social elements. They bring in more, for instance, one would be the standpoint from where you look. That's closer perhaps to the social sciences, where you have other types of procedures in which you agree within the scientific community on what is true and what is not true. And there are more, it's called social constructivist perspective, but or standpoint theory in the feminist literature. But there is other ideas about truth claims are being assessed, established, negotiated, and I can't name them all, but essentially they are in this spectrum between the more like scientific idea from the classical science and relativist claim.
We have another question.
Yeah.
I think it was Karl Popper. I'm not sure, but he said you can never in science you can never prove something.
Yeah.
You can only you can only approach yourself to truth, but you can never find it really. But what you can do is you can disprove things.
Yeah.
So that's
falsification. Yeah.
Another commentary, yes.
I agree with that, and I agree with the point that democracy should be based, or in its core should be the truth. But I also believe that there should be an opposition, always questioning that truth, making sure that that is the truth. Because okay, you can't prove that it's absolutely true because fact, I don't know, information changes throughout the time. There are many proofs that have just been disproven. So there should be always somebody being skeptic about that truth.
Yes. And I think, if I may answer to this, that's actually also part of the mainstream science epistemology, and a sociologist by the name of Robert Merton made that claim. It's called organized skepticism. It's part of how the system works. And in the science, maybe that's a misconception by people who are not first-hand experienced with science, but in the scientific community, criticizing each other's knowledge claim is one of the main themes. And that's called organized skepticism. And it's a process, really, that makes sure how you establish a knowledge claim. Because you did that. You criticized each other, and people have tried to disprove you. And if you sustain, then we can temporarily assume it's not a bad idea if we think that this is actually a true knowledge claim. So that's part of the mainstream science, but it's not like the media. Let's ask somebody else, do you think that there is climate change? And now we have someone who I think it's flat Earth. And that's not science. And I'm not making this up. This is a book by Lee McIntyre, who made the argument. So it may sound a bit ironic, but it's basically that, and if you want, that's system theory. So journalism is a different ball game. It has different rules, and it does things it does for different reasons. And in the media, you like to stage a controversy. That's why you invite somebody who has a different view, which might be completely awkward, because it's an idea of representation, and that's the second element. What the media does, but it's not how the scientific community works. The scientific community doesn't say, "Oh, let's give the word to someone who thinks that the Earth is a disk." That's different from organized skepticism. So, but the logic here is that the media logic is different. The media logic likes controversies. They like a staged controversy because it's sailing. But in systems theory terms, it has different rules from how you do science.
We have investigative journalism. Perhaps there are some parallels to this scientific process, in investigative journalism. Yeah, but you wanted to.
Yeah, I have one question. Do you think the scientist truth is too hard to get for normal people? That's my effect sometimes. Because I'm working with people, they're just asking with 20 years what's the evolution is, you know. Yeah. They don't know the word evolution. It just, first thing. And everything the science came up with is very hard to understand sometimes if you're in it. Not for everybody, for the main, I think. And so sometimes I think it's very hard to read science and the scientific truth. So it's much easier to read the median because they're just easy, they're funny, they're cool. We're getting to this. And so it's very hard to get into science if you're not on a university or just had the chance to get more education for yourself. I think.
Yes.
In addition, I would like to say, if I may, that not only in terms of comprehension, but also in terms of perception. Some people can't get the idea that we evolved from monkeys.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. Yeah, of course. Not the only evolution thing, but it's a whole topic.
Yeah, but I think you're bringing back the discussion to where we started with the relationship to democracy and how whether that is a means to democratize science, or maybe if you want to use a different word, make it more accessible to more people. And I think that's an important element. Also, the question is scientist elitist, and there is a accusation, an implicit accusation behind it that the scientists, they are in an alliance with the powerful. It's an elitist problem, elitist setup. They're just all part of the same type, and we are left out. They're taking advantage of us. They're doing bad things to us, and this elitism as an accusation or as a suspicion about scientists, that they're part of the powerful, of these people up there, or whatever in Austria it is always called, and that is a problem. The elitism of it. And what do you do about it? And that science is an element of elite. And it's also stabilizing existing power relations. It's part of that. And that has been for a long time. And some people try to make up their minds whether there are ways to do better, I would say. Not do it away, but can you do it better? So what can you do? And again, historically, people have tried at the turn of the 19th to the 20th century, when the labor movement got really big and everything, the disadvantaged people who didn't have the right to vote, who could only live from hand to the mouth, poor people fighting for political representation. What did they do? One of the things they wanted is access to education. And education was highly valued. And in the beginning of the 20th century, the labor organizations taught Einstein to factory workers. It's a historical example of trying to bring education to the people and to counteract the elitism of it. It's just one example. And in that line, I think you can also try to understand citizen science as a more recent attempt to make it more accessible. Make it more accessible to more people, without so much of an hidden agenda that means sometimes there is, they should do this, they should do that. But basically, one of the important elements of citizen science is make it less elitist, make it available to more people. Is it better than doing nothing?
Maybe the way of using applications.
Yeah.
Maybe the way of making application accessible could be another way, because I'm only thinking again at the possibility now of several applications to embed some very simple means to be used by anybody to produce something. And now it is possible to experiment and to do a lot of final products, for instance, such a small video, for instance, with everything by yourself, by a very small guidance and everything. This is also a form of...
Yeah, our Fab Lab. Do you have it here?
We have here.
If you talk about making science accessible, most of the papers that I want to use for my seminars or for my bachelor thesis, they are all behind a paywall. Or most of them. So most of the research is also publicly funded in Europe, but also in the United States. The government funds large portions of research for the Department of Energy, Department of Defense and whatnot. And all this research is still behind a paywall. So why should the taxpayer keep funding this if some private company or even the university themselves keep selling it and not making it publicly available? For example, I wanted to read some papers of ACM or published via ACM, and I had to contact a friend in Vienna so I can get them because it's not available over the university library.
Yeah, thank you. That's another element for, and anybody knows about what to do about this problem? That's the idea behind open science. And so open science is basically addressing that very problem and encourage people to publish open access and for free, available for free. And some of the so what can you do, right? Some of the funding agencies and policymakers are attentive to problems sometimes in some ways, but here we have, in the European funding, it's required that you publish open access. So you only get the funding if you publish open access, mandatory. It's a start, it's not a solution, it won't change the whole system, but many people who feel like this is a problem, we should do something, try to forward this idea of broadly called open science. Open science as accessible and the publishing and so on. But it's another element that shows the problems that exist, the inaccessibility, the elitism and everything. What can we do about it? Is publishing open access better or not?
You want to say
something? A little bit random thought, but about accessibility. When I was looking into more recent papers, it just feels like, and I think that may also be just true, that everything gets more specific because it kind of has to, because all the publications have to be something new. So the new parts are ever increasingly smaller. So I think reading also from ACM or something, specific papers from like 1-2 years ago or recently, they are mostly very specific. Something like relativity theory, from Einstein, for example, some big paper that like fully talks about one topic, so you can understand. Okay, you probably can't understand this, but to understand the topic in its entirety is not very available, I would say, in scientific papers. And this is more available now in books or videos. I think the new way of learning into some area, for example, air pollution, would be to read blogs, watch videos, maybe read some books that summarize it well, but then it's not often not clear if they're like what the relationship to science is, or if there even is one, or the author just talks about what he thinks databases are, for example. Right? So that's a little bit of a problem with accessibility, even for students.
We could continue, but I'm not sure if we should.
No, I want to continue and make up or focus to the democratization again, as we did, because your question is open. What is the problem about digitalization and democratization? There is no problem. So why are we talking about it? Yeah. So perhaps we can integrate this, what we talked now, into a whole picture, and to take in the topic also, or the title of our discussion, And so we talked about a lot of different contradictions and social contradictions, social tensions, and we have now. I want to tell you only these. We have these contradictions or social tensions between little groups and mass communication. We have the contradiction or tension between decentralization. We have the demand or need for decentralization, like in civil science, or citizen science projects. Decentralization of digitalisation. We have this demand. And we have, on the other hand, the demand for centralization, make legal acts, make rules for all people all over the world. This demand for decentralization is a demand for democracy. We have a tension between materialism, sustainability, the demands for sustainability on the one hand, and fantasy, creation, creativity, potential development of human societies on the other hand. But we have these limits of sustainability. We have this tension of transparency and privacy. We have the tension, what Bernhard said, also of universal, understandable for all people, and diversity. Be very individual, be very specific. This big question, how can the subaltern speak? How can the subaltern speak if we have only these mainstreaming language? We have the tension, yes, there is also this difference, these differences of cultural differences, religious differences, and so on. We have this very big tension between public, affordable, excessive, common on the one hand, and profitable market, competition on the other hand. also oligarchy and monopoly on the other hand. Yeah? We have this big tension between organizing as unions, as civil society on the one hand, and as market and state on the other hand. Why is it so difficult for technicians to organize in a union all over the world? Why is this so difficult? Why would it be important for democracy? We have this big tension between open, free, on the one hand, without money, and secure without violence, protection on the other hand. And we have also this tension between our physical bodies on the one hand and virtuality, constructivism, digitalization on the other hand. Yeah? So we have many tensions, many contradictions, many social contradictions and intentions within societies. So our main question today, why is it important to democratize digitalization? We have this very big and famous book of Oana Mitrea. She wrote this, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism. What does she say? She says that democracy is in danger through digitalization because very few people all over the world get a lot of information or most information over all of the other people. So this is this new problem. We have a new kind of power problem all over the world through digitalization. It's because of knowledge. Few people, very powerful, very mighty people who sit in the transnational companies and who sit in the states, they get mass information about the behavior of masses of people all over the planet. And that they can take control and they can also take influence, of course, if we let them. And therefore, this important question, how do we organize all together? Yeah? And how do we organize in a democratic form, also with all these contradictions in a digital world? Yeah? And therefore, these two kinds of power, Oana Mitrea, she differs between totalitarianism, this is this kind of power of the 20th century, and instrumentarianism. She tries to search, to describe these new kinds of oligopoly or monopoly, yeah? These concentration of power which are taking place now through digitalization. If, Bernhard, perhaps you can say something then afterwards to this, but perhaps always when you emerge a new kind of technology, this kind of technology is, and of course, social processes, new social processes and new groups, new social groups, form new kinds of power. And they try to take advantage through these new kinds of technologies and through these new kinds of social processes, which are shaped through these new kinds of technologies. And therefore, we are talking about democracy and digitalization because these new technologies are very prominent in forming or shaping these new power relations in our world. And only if I want to remember you, the UN, for example, they published a global digital compact and an open, free, and secure digital future for all. Yeah? The women in the United Nations, they worked also on it. They say placing gender equality at the heart of the global digital compact. Why are they doing this? Because there are very big inequalities, you know these, very big inequalities also concerning to digital access, but also to get access to the knowledge about computing, about digitalization, about forming these social processes and also technical processes. And why are they doing this? The UN, they are very interesting papers from the UN. They are talking about this because they know democracy is in danger. There's always in danger people or groups of people who are not so powerful. Worldwide, we know there are women, families, there are minorities, perhaps people of color, disabled people. There are most of the people, they are only, and this is this big thing they are reflecting, and what we are reflecting today about is that they are generators for data. Like we are living and vivid generators for data. And there are only a few companies or a few states or a few structures who are very powerful to absorb these data. And this fight for democracy within digitalization, and what Shoshana Zuboff is talking about is what can we do, like Bernhard asked, what can we do to work against or to work for democratization, to organize ourselves in a democratic way? Isn't there a union for administrators, for example, or for technicians? What do you think? Technicians or administrators are very powerful people. Why isn't there a union for them? Why aren't they organizing themselves to get aware as a political subject? To get aware that we are political subjects in a democratic play, to find our voice, to find the voice as technicians, or to find a voice as those people who are data generators. We are data generators. So, this is what I wanted to tell you, or I wanted to try to answer this question. I don't know if it's, societies always are in a big danger that you have very great disparities and asymmetries between a few people who are very mighty, very powerful, and a lot of people who are not. But these new technologies are also a very game-changing factors, and the awareness about this is very important also for technicians, because they are important players in this game for democracy and against authoritarianism, instrumentarianism, like you want to tell it. It's not so important, but it's important. And this I wanted to say also to the science. These science processes are so important, and it was very good, the Trump example which you gave. Trump and totalitarianism or authoritarianism doesn't want to have a criticism. They doesn't want to have an organized process of criticism. It's not so important for science to get the absolute truth. Nobody has the absolute truth. But this statement and this process that we want your vote, we want critics of everybody, and not only of experts, but of all people. Each people, like you say, it's enlightenment. This is this idea of enlightenment of Immanuel Kant. Each person is able to think, and each person is able to vote, yeah, and to talk, yeah? And to criticize. This is the most important. We want criticism. And Trump, the problem with Trump or with authoritarianism is they don't want criticism. They don't want an open debate. Yeah? They don't want an organized process where different, and here comes the diversity, where different voices, yeah, or different interests come into the play, yeah, and this is where it comes together, yeah, and the problem is, how is it possible to develop and to find techniques which are voices for the many people, for diverse people, yeah, not only for one? Because if Bernhard said, okay, ChatGPT is a mainstreaming technique. Okay, it was developed in the US. Yeah, perhaps we have other AIs in other local positions of the world, and then it wouldn't be not so mainstream. Yeah. Okay. I don't know if this was understandable. What I tried to say. Yeah. Perhaps you have one or the other idea concerning this connection between digitalization on the one hand, the emerging of new technologies, and this permanent and constant power problem of power, yeah, and empowering and dispowering, yeah, of people, and democracy, yeah, and yes. Now I finish, and I want. Yeah, we will see. Yeah.
Just told us the story how the messenger of Telegram has been developed when Russian businessman and developer Pavel Durov was forced by Russian special agencies working on a well-known person to give them all data about consumers of this social media called VK that turned afterwards last time into some rubbish bin because it is not safe to use at all. Then he has no choice but to sell the social media to the government and to leave the country. And afterwards, the idea of creating a safe messenger, that is Telegram today, has come into his mind. Yeah, so now we have this brilliant messenger. On the one hand, it is pretty nice to use because we can have private discussions there to share some news, whereas in VK we couldn't do it at all under the control. Yeah, but on the other hand, it is not so safe because, for example, some narco sellers, drug dealers, can publish there some information which is not okay for the societies, first of all for teenagers, children, and also it is a good platform for terrorists.
It's a very good example for this social contradiction between freedom on the one hand and security on the other hand. Yeah.
Yes. Because Pavel Durov is a well-known for liberty and democracy. Yeah. He's a warrior in this field. Yeah, obviously. I don't know why, but he couldn't to establish his office in the United States as well. Therefore, he has his office in Dubai for some reasons of safety and democracy.
Yes, true. Initially, he based in Russia. After that, he went to USA. In the USA, he experienced the same issue with FBI. So he moved to London, to Singapore, and so in fact, we see that in all these well-developed countries, he experienced it because of bureaucracy stuff, because of controlling stuff, yeah. And in fact, he found only support in the United Arab Emirates, yeah. And in fact, I would like to add some ideas related to this topic. We speak about digitalization, but in fact, in the 21st century, we see that in the central of Europe, the war takes place. And in fact, we use digitalization stuff not only for improving our environment, but at the same time, I don't know how to kill people and yeah. Right. It's awful, but it's reality.
Yeah. This is very important.
I just wanted to briefly mention maybe another topic of a little bit of a contradiction, because I think you said also with democracy you want to give everyone a voice, like however also niche his opinion or their voice might be. And I think some social media platforms like Twitter or X now try to kind of do this, like let anyone and everyone that has connection to the internet, which doesn't include everyone, but a lot of people from diverse backgrounds, talk about stuff, put out an opinion and look for answers, have vivid discussions. And I think that might be, or that was a good idea. And the reality looks very different, I think. I'm not personally on Twitter, but what I hear about it is that it's a very, very, very toxic place, and a place that is not very supportive of what we talked about today, what would be ideal. So there's this disparity between giving everyone a voice and letting everyone say whatever they like to whomever they want, versus, so that might be a good idea, but it might also be a very bad outcome as we see in the internet. That's basically what I wanted to say. Yeah.
Of course, you can talk about how, in which way all groups of the society are articulating their interests. So you can install processes and think, we can install processes and think about how different groups and people can articulate their opinions. Yeah? So if you have the rule, don't insult the other person, yeah? You can talk about your opinion, but you don't insult the other person. You have a social rule for articulating your vote or your interest.
Yeah, but people argue against that you're restricting their freedom of speech.
Yes, I understand. I understand this. Yes, of course. It's only an example. It's only an example for democracy. Is the idea, as you remember, democracy was the idea. Okay, each person one vote, so you can vote. Yeah, so you don't cut the right wing people and the racists and things like that from the voting. You don't cut them from the voting. Yeah? So I think it's a tension, like we talked, and it's a contradiction, of course. And you have to think about the procedures. And therefore, it's so interesting also this example of Bernhard also and of Oana, that we have to think about the procedures of these social procedures, how to embed these techniques, these new techniques in social procedures.
I thought about you had a very nice mention. Let everybody think, talk, and criticize. So if you take all of them and analyze them a little, so let everybody think. So in our world, it is also a matter of diversity and of the complexity, because I don't think that everybody can think and understand about everything, what's happening now, and can draw the right conclusions about his or their place in society and their possibility of action to do something, to change something in their favor. Then let everybody talk. Everybody talks now, actually, in one or another form, and we have this disparity between the rich north and the global south, when maybe not everybody talks in the same way because there are a lot of restrictions and so on. And also you gave some examples. Talking on Twitter is something else than talking on the Telegram and talking on other platforms. And the carrier of carrying the discussion is also important. And we can also maybe analyze and discuss together what are the best requirements for the configuration of these platforms in order so they are more integrative as possible, as much integrated as possible. And the last part, criticize, I really find very interesting. So this part, criticize is a matter of power too. If they have the courage to criticize, really, in one or another society. And well, I was born in communism, and I came here just after the fall of the cartoon, so to 20,000 in Germany first, and then to Austria. And for me to criticize was a very interesting experience as well, in any way, because I did not criticize anything. So it is also a matter of getting acquainted with methods of criticizing something, and the liberty and the freedom also to tell everything. Not many people have these abilities to express the critical opinion and so on. So we have a lot of disparities now, and to fight for, we have to fight in each other category, actually. But it is a very good, very nice categorization, great. So to be followed, maybe. So.
Thank you. Tiredness is very big. Well, the problem is now the time is advanced. Yeah. Perhaps we should have a closing. Yeah, a closing. No.
Yeah.
A closing thing. For me, it would be good to hear of each of you one important finding or one important idea which you could take with you from the discussion today. And I want to make it like this round. Yeah, don't be shy. Please don't be shy. Please. Okay.
Okay, I think we need to concern about the AI and how to use society in everyday life, and how other people can use it against us, or, for example, monetize our data by the social medias and other things. So.
Thank you.
For me, what I got from today, I guess full freedom is not really possible, because that might affect other people's freedom. So there must be some rules to take into account, but that's also risky because it might go into other way and too much control over society. So it's a bit subject that needs to be always in consideration and discussed, I guess. Yeah.
For me, it's more the AI, so the good and the bad. So we should know notes to take and not just do everything, or rely solely on AI. So yeah, it's more taking the important stuff and leaving out the rest. So you don't become dependent on the knowledge of AI. Like a way for you to also grow your knowledge and yeah.
Oana?
We were just talking whether we should say something
Let
at
the
the end.
students first.
Let the students first. Okay.
I was thinking kind of how everybody needs to adapt. Like technology changes a lot of things, and how we have the AI and talking about how to control plagiarism and stuff like this. I think that every time there's a new technology, we kind of have to adapt to this technology, and then it changes again. And also thinking about the science and politics, and I was kind of wondering, how can we take the politics out of the science, and so that way there isn't this concern of I don't know, I'm trying to blank on my words, but
That it's big magic.
Science should kind of influence policy making, but we don't want policy making to necessarily influence the findings of science to where maybe they're looking at something specific because they're trying to not necessarily have an agenda, but trying to create some kind of outcome. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of stuff was discussed, a lot of ideas, perspectives. But I think that's my insight from this class, that we have applied our own critical thinking for everything. So maybe I will be better, but...
As I'm concerned, it is the last session of the course, right? So therefore, if I may, I would like to say about the course in general. And I'm going to be honest, and at the beginning of each session, I find the classes extremely boring and dull, but till the end of the class, I start overthinking because I have a great deal of different information that I have to overthink about. And so about this 2 days session, I suppose that I'm going to think about it several days later. And sometimes I felt like ungrateful person. It was, as I remember, it was a session with you when we talked about privilege, if we are privileged people yet. And after that, I had a pile of information. And after the class, I called to my father saying, "Oh, thank you very much." And I was really grateful. And so thank you very much for the course.
Yeah. So I find the topic really interesting, and I think it is important to educate all of us, to have such discussions, because this democratization of digital space, I would say the first step is to educate people on what is the digital space, what do we have in it. For example, the artificial intelligence. Most people use it, but they don't have any idea how does it work in the background. Yeah. So that would be just to add to the previous colleague also. I kind of agree with you. These classes take time to get going, but I think it's worth it. So that's just my take.
It does, it definitely does.
But it's always a little bit slow in the beginning to get people talking and being invested into these topics, because they're also very different from game studies, computer science, a lot of these things. I think for me the one main part I took from it is this maybe idea of scientists that produce a truth that may guide our general rules, and the problems that come with this, especially
like what is truth, where on this spectrum that you introduced does it land, how we come to a conclusion in society about this, and also how, especially, how do we get the people to trust this process and this truth. But I think, so for me, it sounded like this should be a very central topic going further.
So for me personally, today we discussed a lot about artificial intelligence, and for me that's a very interesting and very important discussion to have, since on the one hand we all discussed our fears of what we think problems with AI might be, but there's also a lot of positive things that AI brings us and that helps us in our development or in our studies or in our whatever. And I think that's a very interesting topic to think further in the future. What else are possibilities? Where could we go with AI? What is not possible to do? What parts of our jobs can it take over, for example? And I think that's very interesting.
Well, I'm generally a very optimistic person, so I always take the good things of the new advancements first. So I see the good things about technical novelties and stuff. But at the same time, of course, it's important to not oversee the blind spots of developments. Maybe other people have different intentions. So I think all these lectures that we had also showed this in different ways. So yeah, that's my takeaway.
So I think a few moments ago I got the interest about that air quality device and the readability concept, because I think it will be have a huge impact we can in the South Asian region, because it's becoming a huge problem in there because of the massive industrialization. So I think as we discussed, sometimes the data interpretation of data will be not like a good like a representation of the message. But I think that because I saw recently there was like people maintaining different open sites with data interpretation, because in that region, specifically in this period, it's a literacy of the technology, and because of people, most of the population are studying in the applied sciences, engineering, and IT fields. So because of the demand of the market, so they are referring with this data and stuff. So the visualization of the data, especially like the air quality thing, like the air quality, because it's not visible like other factors. So it will be a eye opening if if that concept can open the eye of the most of the population in the region, it can convince the government to consider about the environment and stuff. So yeah, but I think as you said about the devices with the so many access, there will be security concerns. Like, if we can use this in a different location, we get information from different inside locations and stuff. So with I think in that kind of stuff, if we since this is not like a commercial purpose thing, it's about like a convincing people. So it will be like a open design, and if since most of the times these kind of application can do by open source frameworks. So introducing a device and public giving the public access to to read the code. So it will be like a good like a transparent approach. So it will be though the both things as we discussed, to convincing the people aware about the environment and democracy and democracy and the technology awareness and the security stuff. So yeah.
So it's a bit hard to say what I think about. So we have discussed a huge amount of things about AI, about democratizing, about digitalisation, and so on, and which led me to this thing that we have how to say very um, um, I forgot the word. Complicated human nature, and I think we will never reach that point where everyone will be happy, so everyone will can take part in discussions and so on. Some of them will be more involved in the process, and yeah, and I think it's also good that because that is the way, for my opinion, how our society is developing. So that's the point.
What did I get? I sort of learned, well, you know, but I sort of enforced the idea that it's easy to sort of point fingers and blame either technology, either people in power, but at the end of the day, we're responsible for our own actions. So we decide how we can contribute to the development of that technology or the development of society. We can decide what we give to them and what we take from them. We can decide our interactions. So yeah, it's just that. And at the end of the day, whatever we decide, besides the effect that it gives to us, it gives to other people and to generations to come. So we can't really control what other people do, but at least we can try when it comes to us in general.
Well, for me, getting a lot of perspective relating to AI and so forth. As a teacher, I think the benefit and also the drawbacks of AI, but one thing that I'm sure is that I should change the way I teach my students and how to assess their assignments. I mean, I will no longer use paper-based assignments. Maybe I should change and I should be more creative. Okay. Just that's after joining these classes, I think like, okay, I got a lot of perspective. Thank you. Thank you.
What I take home with me is mostly some perspective of other students. For example, Clemens's optimism about technology and how it's positive to use, because I myself am very pessimistic by nature. But it's also difficult because what I like in engineering is that you can find basically perfect solution that is efficient and solves a problem. And with social discussions, it's always a lot of energy, a lot of discussing, a lot of different views, but you never really solve the issue. You keep going forward, but you still have to keep an eye on it. So I will try to be critical of my work, but also how I use technology, so I don't give power to companies that don't deserve it.
For me, I will take some. Yeah, it was also really funny course, the whole one, because I'm from the educational science and gender studies. Normally, we're just talking about women, men, every other diversities, and not the Gegenüberstellung von machine and humans. So it was a whole different point of view, the whole thing, and everyone around here. So it was really funny to be here. So I had to say thank you for everything. And I really loved thinking of them democratizing the internet or the whole social media thing, or the technical and also, because I didn't thought about it before. So it was a real pleasure to be here. So thank you.
Yeah, I think for me it was also about artificial intelligence, because where I grew up, all of my friends work in construction, and I was like in this bubble, and AI just wasn't a topic at all. And just hear different perspectives, how it can be helpful but also harmful, also for children. It was interesting.
From the lecture, I got, like you said, digitalization and communication between large groups and small groups. What I understood was they are being globally manipulated by right now when we are using social media. We are using social media every day, every time. So we are from different countries, but I noticed that we are seeing information related to our country or immediate area. But we are moving to another country or something, we see the information from their country. So basically, the companies and using these algorithms to manipulate us separately, like divide and conquer. So basically, we are being manipulated in globally. That's why I understand from.
So I thought when it comes to AI and the challenges regarding originality and the use of it partially in academics, I think it's probably kind of similar to how the monks were trained in the medieval ages, because back then writing books was prohibitively expensive. So they were training their adolescence, their childhood, to write those books, but with the book press, this skill was less in demand. Maybe the process of the writing itself will be less important. However, for example, if we talk about computer science, the underlying algorithm discovered or the mathematical equation or whatever the subject is becomes more important. For example, explaining the algorithm may be less of an important skill because you can partially outsource it to the AI to help you find the proper words. However, understanding and discovering it will be the more important factor, or creating the product or making the thing happen.
Yeah, so the main conclusion I've drawn from this course is that we can strive and dream for ideals, but we need to face our current situation as it is and find real solutions. Yeah, so that was my main point.
So for me today, it was really interesting to think about AI global manipulation possibility. And in general, on this course, it was really interesting to hear a lot of different points of view on different problems.
Yes, I follow and I give to you. I'm very thankful for all of you, or towards all of you, because you shared your experiences and your thoughts. And we cannot work here, we cannot teach, and we cannot learn together, because we also learn from your experiences. So, yeah, we cannot learn together without sharing our experiences and our thoughts. And this is how we learn, and not only through writing alone at home. This is also important. I can read a book and experience the experience of the author, yeah, and then I reflect and write alone at home. But this is the kind how we change our views and how we get sensible towards questions of democratization, diversity, or gender, power, equality, inequality. Yeah, we learn from each other and our experiences. And And this is the important thing here in this course. And I thank you very much for that you gave your experiences and your thinkings, and that you went with us this journey. Because for us, it's not important that you write in a computer and then you send a paper. This is not important here. So it's your thinking, like one person said, I think you said this, think critically for oneself. Yeah, thank you very much.
Oana, thank you. So for me, it was a really, really interesting discussion at a high level. I learned a lot from you too, exactly as you said. And I was stricken a little by I think you said it was too much coming from the social side to the engineers, because I read an article from an AI specialist in the US and talking exactly the same thing about the whole about the, how can I say, the ocean of requirements coming to them now when they have to develop a specific application or a system, and they have to deal with this and this and this and ethical requirements. And this is really very difficult now and cannot be cannot be avoided. So there are things that must be done. So I think the developers of new advanced technologies need interdisciplinary, need also the literacy of the other type of specialists, of the social specialists, for instance. They have to understand a little more from the technology itself, and I don't know, new skills are needed now because we cannot understand each other. So in the short time, there will be two worlds looking to each other, and it should be some bridge between them. So in the future, so also from the point of view of the competencies. Yes.
Last word, Ben.
Actually, I was trying to understand my conclusion. I'll be brief and say just a few words. There is a guy by the name called Timothy Schneider. Does anyone know him?
Yes.
Yeah. So he's a historian. And he became a bit of a public figure because he's a historian of the Ukraine. He has more audience now. And he does podcasts. You can watch it on YouTube. It's very recommendable. There's a lot of things to learn. And in one of it's a class. He teaches a class at, where is he, Princeton or something? Or Harvard, I don't know. One of these prestigious universities in the United States, and he teaches the students. And one thing that I want to share with you is notion of should we give up? Is it too late anyway? Is it too big? Is it hopeless? Is it too late? Is it too big for me? Or is there no hope at all? And so he tries to give an answer to that, and I found it very meaningful. And it has to do with the understanding of democracy. And he said, as being an American, and trying to capture the American idea about this, that has to do with the fall of the Berlin Wall, the collapse of the Soviet system, that and people have called this the end of history. It's now it all will be fine because it will all come automatically. We don't need to fight for it. Democracy, prosperity, wealth, and everything will just come. And so and I hope I don't misrepresent him. His take about this was, we took it for granted that there will be democracy all around the world and nothing needs to be done. It will just be an automatic result of what happened. And the reason why he says that is, of course, because it has come true. Right? We're in the middle of big troubles, global conflicts, and democracy is really on the line or in danger. And so what has he to say about this? And he says it's a mistake to understand democracy is something that we have. It's rather something that we may aspire to, that we keep trying to walk towards rather than have it. And the reason why this matters is that you start asking different questions. You start asking smaller questions, and it may be less likely to be discouraged, or it's one way of not giving up. And that seems to matter to me, that what, as a teacher, as a university teacher, what can I say that we don't give up, right? And to answer, is it too late? Is it too big? Is it too overwhelming? Is it hopeless? How do I answer? And so that's my point. And maybe watch Timothy Schneider as something that we should aspire, and we should ask: is it better or worse? Does it help us or does it not? Does it help us to make a small move forward or does it not? It's more important to ask that rather than the big question: do we have democracy, or something like that, which may be discouraging. And you know, I hope we were not discouraging. And it's about my role, being critical, right? What is it to be critical? Is it just to? One of my students asked me, "Why so negative? Why am I so negative?" What do you answer? Why do we think we need to be critical? Right? I think it helps us to make a small step forward. That would be my answer. I don't know if you agree, but why so negative? Yeah, maybe we can find ways, small steps forward.
Yeah, we won't give up and we will engage and found a union for many technicians worldwide. No, okay. Thank you very much. Enjoy the weekend and thank you very much.